and welcome back to Keys to the Market, your new favorite real estate podcast. And we are your new favorite real estate team. My name's Eric, and I'm joined with my mom, Kathy, and my brother, Ryan, and together we make up the Lime Cooler Group, a team specializing in the Orange County real estate market. Today, we're going to kind of go over some of the new shifts we're seeing in the market, answer some questions that we've been hearing from a lot of our clients, and kind of just try to educate you guys on what's going on out there. So, Ryan, you got a bunch of questions you're going to ask us. Do you want to get started?
Yes. So, as you may have heard, there are major changes that are happening in the real estate market. And with this new NAR settlement going into effect, how do you guys think that the real estate industry is going to change?
It's a big one.
It is going to change, we're sure of that. We've already faced it.
So let's go back for a second. So the NAR settlement, essentially there was a lawsuit that happened elsewhere in the country, but it changed. The NAR is National Association of Realtors, and it's changing how real estate houses are bought and sold. Essentially, what used to happen was when someone would sell their house, the money that was paid to a commission would be paid to the seller's agent, and then that agent would cooperate with the buyer's agent's broker, and they would give the money to the buyer's agent. So the amount of commission given to a buyer was set by the seller. That has changed, and now buyer's agent commission is fully negotiable. It can be paid by the seller, it can be paid by the buyer, it can be paid in many different ways. So the whole forms and the way we do transactions is kind of changing in terms of that. I don't know if you want to kind of go a little bit further.
I think that you did a great job explaining it. They're looking for more transparency in that before that the seller would offer a commission, it would only be on the MLS from broker to broker. And now they're doing it so that there's going to be no commission given to the buyer's side unless it's negotiated through the deal itself. So the seller, in effect, is just paying the seller's side of the transaction.
Yes.
And that means a lot. It just means a shift in the market because people are unsure. People don't really understand what's going on. I don't believe in the end the change is going to be great, but to begin with everything else, like everything else that we've had to change with, it's going to be the road's going to be a little bumpy with some potholes in the way.
When you say the change isn't going to be great, you mean it's not going to be a large change?
I don't believe so, because I believe that it's hard to say because the house is actually a cost of goods, right? Just like anything else, just like what you buy in Target, the consumer in Target is paying for the wholesale cost and then the cost of shipping. All of that goes into the total cost in the end. And I think that the same thing is going to happen in housing, but the shift we have to figure out how it's going to go, what side it's going to come from, whether it be the buyer or the seller that's going to offer the commissions on both sides.
We're seeing right now actually, as of August 17th was when the date in which all of the changes kind of went into effect. And all of our forms and whatnot have changed. So the forms as in like the residential listing agreement, the residential purchase agreement,
yes.
All of the forms that you actually would use to buy or sell a house have all changed now to reflect the change in commission structure. And actually on a listing agreement, there is no longer a place for the seller to even actually put a commission. So all of that is different. So I do think it's going to take a little bit of time for the market to kind of catch up to that and figure it all out. There's going to be good things that happen. There's going to be bad things that happen. You're probably going to hear about it in the news about what's happening here and there. I think a lot of the time change happens and everything blows up and everything, and then everything goes back to normal. We're still going to buy and sell houses. People are still going to use real estate agents, and you should still be using a real estate agent, honestly, maybe now more than ever, to help you navigate this and make sure you're protected legally and financially and all of that. So while the bigger shift in how all of that is happening might be changing, the overarching idea of what we do and how we can help you will always remain the same.
The interesting thing too is that I think like people don't realize this, but the forms are here now, and little do they know that we as real estate agents had to go over probably 3 or 4 versions already. We've been taught, we've been retaught, we've been taught again, and we're still not sure that the final this is the final product we have now, but as we have to tweak it, even that'll change.
So it seems like a lot has changed with paperwork and some of the things that the regular day-to-day things that we deal with as agents. But how does this affect sellers, or how does this affect buyers? Because that's what buyers and sellers are going to be interested in. How does this affect them? So starting with sellers, if I'm a seller looking to put my house on the market, how does this law even impact me at all?
So like I was saying,
Good question.
so like I was saying, the way real estate used to be done in terms of a seller is we would come and sit with you and we're going to list your house. You would give us an overall commission.
That was paid to not us, it was paid to our brokerage
Our
firm.
broker firm. We are, like, our broker is First Team Real Estate. We're an associate of First Team Real Estate.
Mm-hmm.
So what would happen is it used to be about 5-6% times of change, but it would be about 6%, and that would be split up between the buyer's broker and the seller broker. So you would pay your listing agent 3%, and then the listing agent would take the other 3% and give it to the buyer's broker, thus paying the buyer or the buyer's agent. Now what's going to happen is, like we were saying, on those forms and whatnot, it actually doesn't even list the amount of money or the amount of commission you're going to be paying out to the buyer's broker. You're only going to be agreeing on what you're paying your listing agent as a seller.
Okay.
So what that actually means in practice is that you're going to negotiate directly with your listing agent. If we're coming to list your house, you're going to negotiate with us directly on how much money you are going to pay us based off of the value that we bring, all the stuff we would talk to you about the photography and the staging and the XYZ. After that, what's going to happen is you're going to get once we put your house on the market, with every offer, you're going to get a paper with the offer that says how much commission the buyer's broker is asking for.
Do we have to pay that?
That's a good question, but can I take him back a minute just before you go to there? Because what's going to happen is, the good thing about this to us as agents is we know our worth, we know our value. We know what we do for both a buyer and a seller.
Yes.
And the thing that's going to happen for the buyers is you're going to have to sit with them, negotiate what you do, and explain what your worth is. And that's, I think that for so long, the buyers just think that they can go to any agent when they don't realize how important your agent is. So you're going to have an agreement with your buyer of the most that you could get. You're going to have on this form whether your percentage is 2%, 3%, 5%. You're going to agree with your buyer that if up to this point is what, if a seller will give it, you can accept, or if the seller won't give it, they'll accept from the buyer. And that's the start of what Eric's going to talk about.
So essentially, it's turning both sides of the transaction into similar experiences. Mm-hmm. As a seller, you're going to sit down with a listing agent, a realtor you're going to list your house, and you're going to negotiate the money you're going to pay them. Same thing on a buyer now. Rather than your buyer's agent just going out and showing you the houses and then the amount of money kind of coming in at the end just based off what it was, you as a buyer are now going to find the realtor that you are comfortable with and you want to work with and is going to give you the value that you're looking for, and you're going to have to discuss and negotiate with them the amount of money you are willing to pay them or you want them to try to get from the sellers. The money for a buyer the money for a buyer's agent can come from many different places, most likely them being either the buyer directly or the seller from the house that they buy, which would be the same as with the previous way. It's just the way the forms work and all of that. As a seller, in practice, what this is going to mean is that for every offer we present to them, so every offer that we as a listing agent get from a buyer's broker or buyer's agent, we're going to show them the amount of money that the offer is giving to them. So let's just use round numbers. They're offering $1 million on a house. You're also going to have an amount of money that the buyer's broker is asking to be paid. So that could be, in that last example when I was saying 6%, that could be 3%. The buyer's broker is asking the seller to pay 3%. Like you asked, do I have to pay that? In theory, no. Like the buyer's broker could ask the seller for no commission, and either be doing it for free, which if someone's doing it for free, I don't think that they're not going to give you the value that you're looking for, but that's another argument for another day.
It's supposed to be a job.
But, so you could be asking the seller for 0% commission because the buyer is willing to pay their broker the amount of money that they are willing to do on the back end outside of that transaction itself.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, going into the buyer side, I've heard this from a lot of buyers that came into our open houses prior to this, where it makes sense for me as a buyer to walk into an open house without representation, because then maybe it's sweeter to the seller, because then they have the opportunity to represent me on the buy side. So maybe I become more of a priority buyer than I would have been. How does this situation change that? Can I still walk into an open house? Can I still walk into a showing without representation?
That's a great, and there's two different ways. Kind of what you said, or the question that you asked, has two parts to it. Because in the beginning you said that if I walked into the open house and wanted to be represented by that agent, that's different than you representing yourself. So I guess the biggest advice that I would give to anyone out there is, it's not real to a buyer's advantage. If a buyer's choosing to represent themselves, they have no one with a license responsible, protecting them, going through the disclosures, knowing the questions to ask. You're going blind, so no one can give you the forms. All we can do is take what you give us and give it to our sellers. If you go into an open house and you decide that you want to use that listing agent, every open house you go into now, you're going to have to sign a form that says that you realize that we are going to keep advising you to be represented, whether it's by the agent that's in the house, by your own agent, by your sister who's an agent, whoever it is. We're going to give you that advice because it is to your best advantage.
To pause you there for a second, though, that is something that I do want to point out in it, is that open houses do remain open to the public.
Yes.
Anyone in all of this, we're saying that you should be advised or you should be represented and all that. You as a buyer can still go into an open house and you do not have to give liability or anything to that person. You're not represented by that person. Open houses are the only place that will still truly remain open to the public. But you are still going to be asked. Just like when coronavirus started, we had a form that everybody had to fill out when they came in, that said your name and that you were there at that open house at that time. That was for tracking. But now we need to have that, because if one of these people that comes in with a representation, we need to know who they are and where they're coming from.
Okay.
Also, in terms of that, because I know you were asking about buyers, and this is kind of a nuance in it as well, is that what we're talking about in terms of representation is it's a buyer representation. It's the agent saying, the buyer broker, buyer agent saying that they are representing buyers. There are actually multiple different forms, is what I'm going to say, but there's actually multiple different, it does get complicated, but I guess all I'm really trying to get at in it is that some of them are fully exclusive, saying that you are only going to work with this one agent on anything you buy. Some of them are non-exclusive, saying that you're only working with an agent on the house they've shown you. There's many different forms that this can take. So I guess to just say, be informed about that, because if someone's telling you that you have to sign an exclusive agreement only with them,
make sure you love them.
That's not true, but you also can sign an exclusive agreement only with them if you trust and believe and want to work with them.
That makes sense too. Thank you for clearing that up. So there are, obviously, with anything new, there are some common misconceptions.
Right.
People think, this means, because of this means this. So maybe I go into this thinking, I can get a deal now because I'm a buyer and this is a new thing and we don't have to pay buyer's agents. Maybe I can get away with paying nothing, or maybe I can get away with paying a lot less than I would. Is that the truth? Is there a misconception there?
It's funny because that misconception's coming a little bit more from the seller side than the buyer side, because the buyers thought before they were having the glory job, right? Because their agent was getting paid for, and it didn't even need to be from them. Now the buyers are a little bit more nervous about where this money's going to come from, but the sellers all think, oh, I'm paying half the commission that I was paying before. When the truth is, it's like everything. In the end, when you put your house on the market and somebody gives you an offer, you're going to be looking at, and it all keeps coming back to that bottom line. Not that top number, that bottom line, and what bottom line gets you the most money, right? So if an agent, I'm going to go back to your $1 million, if an agent, the $1 million agent says, you know what, I'm going to offer you $1.5 million because I have a 3% commission, right? So that $1.5 million, if I'm doing commissions for you, is only going to cost you $1,005,000, right? Whereas if somebody offers you $1 million and no commission, you've actually made more with the $1.5 million offer. So we're gonna navigate through this, and everybody's gonna, let me say it this way. Nobody has an advantage. There is no advantages out there. It's just the same business done a different way.
I think I was going to say the same thing. I think the biggest misconception, I would say, is the fact that this is going to change everything. And I don't think that's entirely true. It is going to change the way paperwork is shuffled around. It is going to change the way money is done. And to be honest, it will change some aspects of some transactions. But also to say the same thing, like we've had... Before any of this happened, we've had times when buyers were willing to pay agent commissions in order to do certain things, or buyers are willing to pay, or selling agents or pay money back. And there's things in a lot of different ways that have always been creative ways of financing deals and getting houses and whatnot. I think at the end of the day, the overarching way that you buy and sell a house isn't going to fundamentally change. It's just going to change who and where the money's going from. Again, though, I think the biggest thing I would say to people is to be aware just that, like, you should be represented by a seller and by a listing agent or a buyer's agent if you are listing or selling, and you should trust and feel comfortable with that person and be willing to work with them and understand it with them. I also think, like you said earlier, this stuff is going to continue to change. I mean, we're talking about this based off what we know right now and all of this, but this is a very large shift in the market, and it's going to keep changing. And I think you said something similar in the last podcast, that we always have our pulse on the market, but we also always have to have our pulse on how the real estate industry works. So the most buyers that we're talking to right now aren't going to know the nuances of every single thing, while we are paying attention to this every single day.
Yeah.
And if it makes more sense for you to pay us directly because this offer for some reason, or it makes more sense for the seller to pay, like, we're gonna know all of that stuff because we're gonna be on the front lines.
The good news, and I'm saying this honestly, the good news for you and the good news for us, it's the top negotiators that are going to go to the top, right? The cream always rises. You always hear that. And we work really hard to be top negotiators. And I think that that's what you want in your corner. You need somebody who knows how to negotiate, understands the nuances of this, and is there in your corner whether you are buyer or seller. And I feel really confident that our group can do that.
I agree.
So as experts, how does our approach change, or does it change at all because of this settlement?
Honestly, I don't think, maybe certain aspects of our approach will change, of course, but I truly believe that the way we do business is not going to change at all. I think this is in terms of kind of any shift that comes to the market. People want to say that technology was going to change real estate. People want to tell us that AI is going to change real estate. People want to say that this is going to change real estate. At the end of the day, our business, us as a Lime Cooler Group, it's not about the trends and the changes. Our business is about having relationships with the clients that we work for, protecting their best interests, communicating with you, and doing everything we can to help you buy the house you want or sell your house for the most amount of money. So
buy your house for the lowest amount of money and sell your house for the most amount of money.
Yes, exactly. And our approach will never change from that. Our approach isn't going with the wind. Our approach is very steadfast in that we want to make sure we are very client centric, and that's never going to change. Whatever the market's going to throw at us, change with us, do for us is never going to alter that. We're going to have to do certain things on the back end. We're going to have these conversations with our buyers and sellers and all of that. But truly, our approach to everything is always going to remain the same because it's what's worked. It's what worked when people were calling one another to get into houses and you couldn't see houses on the internet. It's what worked once Zillow came out. It's what's worked since AI. It's what's going to work a million years from now when we're seeing houses in VR headsets. It's going to keep working because that's what really matters.
The good thing to know, and especially with all of you that want to work with us, because of every change that happens, we are well educated. We've been educating ourselves for longer than you'll believe on this subject, so that any hiccups that would happen are not going to happen because we know how to take them. We know what to do with them.
So things might not be changing so much for us in our approach, but what about the market? Just this settlement. We were hearing about this settlement before it even really went into effect,
Right.
before people even knew what was going on.
Right.
So people who are buying and selling their houses, they know about this.
Right.
And they might be confused about it,
Yes.
or they might not understand all the nuances that we've been talking about. But how does this change their mind? How does this change the market? Does it change the market?
Honestly, no. It changes how we I keep going saying the word negotiate or navigate. It changes how we navigate through the market. That's the only change. So the forms are more transparent. Actually, the seller knows exactly what they're going to do. It's not out there in front of only real estate agents. The buyers are negotiating with their own agent what they're going to be paid. Before, the buyer really had no idea what their agent was getting paid. Now they're going to know. They're going to negotiate with them. And I think all that transparency is the best thing. I mean, come on, guys. We live our life like that. Like something's going on, you tell me, right? And we'll figure it out together. And that's the same thing that's happening here. We'll figure it out with our agents. We will guide our agents through, or our clients through that, and answer any questions. If we don't know the answer, we have such a broad amount of people that we can go to get the right answers.
On the flip side of that too, though, is that kind of like we're saying, there are misconceptions out there. There are going to be sellers and there are going to be certain buyers out there that do not understand the changes, and that will alter some expectations. It will alter some of the ways in which certain people deal on the market. Like she's saying, it's not going to change the overarch, but there will be certain expectations, and there will be some buyers that are going to go out there and say, I'm not going to take an agent, I'm going to represent myself. And you as a seller are going to have to decide whether you're willing to take that offer or not. There will be some sellers out there that are going to say, I'm not going to pay your buyer's broker, and you're going to have to decide, and that's going to hurt you because it's going to draw less people into your house. There's going to be a lot of different things that are going to happen, so it is going to change certain aspects of how the market moves, but I also think that that's going to be a more short-term response than a long-term response.
Eric had a great analogy in the beginning of all of this when we were talking about what's going to happen, and he said that maybe for the first few months it's going to be the Wild West. Like the agents are it's going to be the Wild West. But the truth is, with the Lime Cooler Group, we've got the lassos to calm down every one of those wild horses. Like we do. Like you need somebody who's got the arsenal to handle it, and we do. We're very confident that we do, and we'll get our buyers and our sellers through this.
So it seems like changes like this sometimes just give us an opportunity to show our true value and how good we really are. So
Right.
it's
Or
not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I'm excited about it because I think that it puts the buyers and sellers both of them need to understand what's going on. And both of them now, it used to be the sellers that really had to get the value of their agent, and the buyers would use anyone as their agent. A little bit. There's a lot of well-educated buyers that have come with some super strong agents. So now I think that both buyers and sellers are going to get the advantage to realize the value of their agents, and to us that's a good thing.
Great. That makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah.
So that's a lot on this NAR settlement, but what about the market in general? Because we talked last time about how the market can shift in like a day. So where are we at right now, you guys?
We actually are seeing a shift in the market right now. For a long time, actually for a pretty while, we had been seeing houses were flying off the shelf for a pretty. I mean, there was honestly ever since COVID happened when they lowered the interest rates, houses
We
were
had a
kind
dip
of
last year.
houses. What am I gonna say? Houses were flying off the shelves. There
Right.
was it has become more cyclical in that the end of last year it slowed down.
And then it
picked back up again.
Spring.
We're at a place where houses are sitting a little bit longer on the market.
Yes.
It's they're not getting as many of showings. I think a lot of the time when we say that, we don't draw that nuance there though, that just because houses are sitting on the market longer or it's taking a little bit longer for them to sell or there's not as many buyers, that doesn't mean that prices are going down.
Everybody wants prices to go down. I get that.
It might also mean that prices are not going up, but it doesn't mean that prices are going down. It just means that it takes a little bit longer to sell. We really have to start marketing, and you might take a little bit more time. And when you're going to buy that next house, things might be a little bit different. But we are seeing a little bit slower. We are also though starting to see more sellers kind of raising their hand, saying that they might be willing because interest rates have dropped a little bit.
Can I say that interesting thing? Because we're all, we're going back to just educating your buyer or your seller, trying to educate our own buyers, that everybody's waiting for the feds to drop the rates. Well, you're waiting for the feds to drop the credit card and the car loan rates when little do a lot of the buyers know that the rates dropped about 2 weeks ago.
There's a misconception that interest rates are the exact same thing as mortgage rates. That the Fed alters mortgage rates. The Fed doesn't directly alter mortgage rates. The Fed alters interest rates, which can play with mortgage rates, but mortgage rates are a different market than the Fed's interest rate.
So now, if you want to know if it's a good time to buy, it is. And if you want to know if it's a good time to sell, it is.
Yeah, true.
and just to, like we said in the beginning, find a person that you trust, who you can tell every secret that you have to, and you know that they will keep it, and just try to do the best job for you. Yeah. And we know that that's us, but I'm sure that some people have their own.
I think we're starting to wrap up here. Is there any final advice either you guys have or you want to tell?
I think Ryan, we'll go back to Ryan. I think Ryan has kind of a pretty good example of how we can help people. Like he found a house for a super important client of his that he's been working with and really trying his best to help. And it did sit on the market a little longer. And the reason was because the seller probably priced it a little high. Yeah. But Ryan was able to be diligent and hold on to it. And you've got a pretty happy seller ready to run, right?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But after about 2 weeks of our offer kind of sitting out there, and we thought the transaction was kind of dead in the water, it came back to us, and they got the exact number that was their deal number that they really wanted to get to, and that they needed to get to get this house. And once that number came back to them, they were all in, and now
we're helping them negotiate.
So we're doing a good job with it. So yeah, as you can see, time on the market really does impact things.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening again. Like we said in the last one, if you enjoyed this, please feel free to leave a comment below, like us on social media, follow us on any of the social media platforms. And if you have any questions, you can email us at info@limecoolergroup.com, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks a lot for listening.
Thanks for your time.